Alright, boys and girls, welcome to your first Everyday Math 4th grade lesson. This is lesson 1.1. What you should know is whenever you get ready to do a math lesson, you want to have your math notebook out. You always want to have it dated for the date that you're going to be listening to the lesson, and then you want to have it with a title or a heading that says what lesson number we're on. So in your notebook, you should be writing lesson 1.1 and today's date. When you have that ready, you'll go ahead and go on. So the first thing I want you to do in your math notebook after you've written the date and the lesson number is I want you to figure out what the largest number you could create would be using the digits 0, 3, 9, and 7. Use each of the digits only once, and then underneath where you've written the number, explain your reasoning. Why did you choose to place those digits in those certain place values? Okay? You can pause the video to take care of that, and then start it again when you're ready. So if you've completed your first step, the second one is now you're going to try and write the smallest number you can using the digits again, only once. You can't use 0 as your first digit, so don't try that. And then again, after you've written the number, go ahead and explain your decisions as to why you put those numbers where you did. Go ahead and pause it until you're ready. Okay, so you should have already created your numbers if you're looking at this slide. Here's the numbers that I created. So when I'm trying to make the biggest number, I have to think about which place value is the largest, and I'm going to put my largest digit there. That's why I use the 9 to become 9,000, the 7 to be 700, the 3 to be 30, and of course the 0 to be 0 ones. So 9,730 would be the biggest number that I could create. And then for the smallest one, since I can't use 0 in the front, I'm going to look for my next smallest digit after the 0. That's the 3. That's going to go in the place value that has the biggest value again, which, and for what we're talking about, which is 4 digits, is the thousands. So it's 3,079. Check to see if that's what you have, and check to see if your reasoning makes sense along with what I've had to say. Okay, so let's ask some questions about these numbers that we've just created. Hopefully you now have yours to match mine. If you didn't have the same numbers that I have, but you now see the point that I made, go ahead and cross yours off. Don't scribble it out. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Just cross it off and then write the correct answer beside it, so you know when you go back to look at this later when you're working on your homework, what decision you originally made and what your new reasoning is and what the correct answer is. So always do that throughout the whole math year. So when I look at that 9,730, I want you to be sure that you think about this the same way I do. So if I were to ask you, what's the value of the 7 in that number? I hope you would tell me it's 700. If I were to ask you what's the value of the 3 in that top number, I hope you would tell me it's 30. So I'm talking about this 3 right here. So that's the 3 I'm talking about to be 30. If I was going to do that same kind of operation with the bottom numbers, I hope you would see that the 9 in the lower number would be worth just 9 because it's in the ones spot, so it's 9 ones. Whereas the 7 in the smaller number that I made, the 3,079 number, the 7 would therefore, this 7 here, would be worth 70 because it's 7 tens. That's the spot that it's in. All right, let's do a little bit more of that work when we look at this place value chart. So when we look at that, you see going from the right to the left, not traditional reading, right? But in math, we're looking right to left at these place values. You know we go ones, tens, hundreds, and then those 3 go together as a set of 3 as a period, it's called. And then we've got the next 3, so let's mark those off for you. So this is a period, and then this is a period as well, and it's the thousands period. So when you look at it, the thousands are in the ones if you compare them, and then the 10 thousands, like the tens, and the hundred thousands, like the hundreds. So keep that in mind when you're looking at numbers. And notice that after the thousands, there's a comma, and that's really important. Now I covered it up, I'll erase that so you can see it. So that comma is really important. We should probably put a nice big one right here to remind us that we'd always want to put it there. And when we say a word that is large enough to have that as one of its positions, you say the word thousand when you get to it. So let's look at the bottom number for an example, that 200,000. So I'm reading it 200, then I come to the comma, 1,000, and then there's no numbers left. Okay, so if we're talking about place value using these numbers, and let's say we're looking at this row right here, where the 200 is. So if I look at the 2 in that, what's the value of that? Well, it's 2 in the hundreds, so it's 200. Take a look at all of those and make sure that you're understanding that concept. And if not, write a question in your notebook that you'll ask me when you see me when you come to group. Okay, one other thing we want to use this chart for is to talk about when we're looking at place values. If I was going to go from the ones to the tens, I should know that what I'm doing there is multiplying by 10. Going this way. Every time it's going to be times 10. And I could just repeat that all the way down. We're on a place 10 value system in the math that we use, and that's why each time I go over, I'm multiplying by 10. So if I reverse that logic, if I'm going from a larger place value column to the one to a smaller one, or the one to its right, I would be taking a tenth of that value. We'll get into that a whole lot more later, but just make sure that you understand that concept as well. All right, let's look at the number I've written down below here in green, just to make sure that we know how to read and write those large numbers. So if the number I wrote here was 37,084, it's got 3 in the 10,000, so that's 30,000. 7 in the thousands, so 7,000. Put those together, 37, and then there's that comma, 1,000, I'm going to say the place value, and then 84 in the tens and the ones, 8 tens, 4 ones. I hope that makes sense to you as to how I can break that number down and how I can put it back together. So I can decompose it and put it back together. All right, so if I was going to do one more, this time let's think about, I'll tell you a number, let's see if you can write it. So that number is 408,927. Give that a try. 408,927. Give that a try. Pause this if you need to, and then check to see if you've done the same that I have. Okay, so there we go, and there we have 408,927. You're going to move on to, almost gave you all the answers. You're going to go on to work on Math Journal page 2. When you've completed it, you are going to go on to the next slide and check your answers. Please don't do it before you've completed it. It certainly won't help you as a mathematician. So when you're ready, you'll go on to the next slide. Pause this while you work. Okay, check over those answers. Any of them that you do miss, I want you to cross off your answer, not scribbled out, just put one line through, and correct. Correct in red pen. We'll always correct in red pen. That way when you come to group, I can take a quick look to see what items maybe I need to cover a little bit better to make sure that you understand them. Okay, so check over your answers, correct yours, and then we'll be meeting in group shortly. When you do complete checking that over, if I've not called you to group yet, you're going to work on MathBox 1.1 and HomeLink 1.1. Those are in 2 separate books for you. Make sure you have it pulled out, your HomeLink pulled out to take home tonight. You don't want to take that whole HomeLink book home. Just take home 1.1. Okay, see you in group.